This was a very weird football game, and I know this is a level of analysis that may ruffle some feathers, but understand I respect what everyone has to say. I want to hear what everyone has to say, but my opinion will always be formed off of the statistics and what I saw on the football field. Now, I got to preface this because looking at this football game, what actually happened? This is a game that I watched back about 3 to 4 times. I saw it yesterday. I watched it back last night, and I watched it again this morning before I recorded the video just to understand what really happened. The Detroit Lions got it out the mud. This is when winning gets ugly, and this is the definition of an ugly win. Now, for the Chicago Bears, we're going to talk about them as well, but in a situation where it's 26-14, 7 minutes left in the football game, how do you not close it? Matt Eberflus, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at a lot of different people on the team. Luke Getsy, Justin Fields. And I'm going to talk about Luke Getsy a little more further down the line because I don't understand how you go run, and then a deep shot to Tyler Scott. Now, I did like the play call, but I don't understand the sequence of how we got those plays called out. Now, talking about the Detroit Lions, though, we talk about winning ugly. How did they do this? Coming back, scoring 2 touchdowns, and then getting the safety with the Aiden Hutchinson sack. I want to talk about Goff. 23 of 35, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 3 of them. I think that what we saw in this game, it was miscommunication on some levels, and it was just really more so than anything, Goff really not understanding what he's seeing at certain times. Now, Goff, I've talked about Goff. I've said at times this season he's played like an MVP level quarterback, but I think we can also say a guy is playing very good while also talking fairly about his bad moments. And in this game, he had some really, really bad moments. Also had a pick that could have went back to the crib for the Chicago Bears. That was a drop one by them, but we talk about this. I think the first pick, that was really when I say miscommunication, looking at what the receiver's doing, looking at what Goff is looking at, and I didn't think they were on the same page. I didn't think they saw the same thing. Now, that second and that third one to Tremaine Edmonds and also that one to TJ Edwards, those are two where I look at and say, okay, when we talk about the TJ Edwards pick, we cannot come back with the football late. If we're going to our first, second, third read, we should never come back with the football and go late across the middle of the field. If you want to go late, take the shot. If you want to go late, hit the perimeter, hit the sideline and the numbers. We cannot go in there with those safeties. We cannot go in there with those linebackers because they're lurking. And if we're trying to get there late with the pressure on our face, we're not going to be able to accurately assess what's in front of us. I think that's when TJ Edwards got him. I think that's how Tremaine Edmonds got him. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, we got to be more efficient. Offensively, I didn't think Ben Johnson, when we talk about offensive coordinators, he's going to be a head coach very, 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 very soon. When I talk about what he did on the football field, I thought it was a well-executed game plan for what he called. But when we talk about executing it from the player standpoint, I don't think it was a clean game from that. Now, also Craig Reynolds, he had a fumble on the kickoff return. So that's 4 offensive turnovers, but they still scored 31 points. It's tough when you look at it and you say, okay, Chicago, why are we not capitalizing on these situations? And it was really one where you got a turnover. It was 20-7. And then you go down the football field and then it was 20-14. And then you go down the football field, you kick a field goal instead of scoring a touchdown right there. I thought if you kicked the field goal and then you ended up getting 23, but if you got 27, if you got into a situation like that, I think you say, okay, we have a firm grasp on this game before the Chicago Bears, but it just didn't go down like that. But I think we can also turn to the flip side of that and say Justin Fields actually had a great game. It was his first game back for the Chicago Bears coming off of an injury. No more Tyson Bagent. They now have their guy in place. And I look at it, 16 of 23 passing, 169 yards, a touchdown, rushing the football though. It wasn't a big-time Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson game. It was really Justin Fields scrambling out of the pocket and getting it on his own. 18 carries, 104 yards. So when I talk about this, I think you have to say, okay, we can't let it be a Justin Fields show. If it's going to be anything, it's going to be a Roschon Johnson. It's going to be a Khalil Herbert. It's going to be some of those other guys, maybe a Cole Kmet. We can't let it be DJ Moore either. If it's a DJ Moore and a Justin Fields show, then we're going to be in for a day. And that's exactly what it was offensively. Like I said, shout out to Luke Getsy for the early game plan. But when I talk about those final 7 minutes, just was not a big time fan of the sequence and how that went down. Now, getting back to the Detroit Lions, we talk about their offense. 3 of 3 in the red zone, 8 of 11 on third down. Like I said, efficient for the most part, but you have those turnovers, that kills drives. And when I also talk about getting that duo, that dynamic duo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, getting them more involved, now we're taking the football out of the offense's hands. We can't lean on a Montgomery to break those tackles and get those big-time runs. It was 40-20 time of possession. Those are football games you lose. 4 turnovers. Those are football games you lose. And still they found a way to win. I seriously don't know how to explain the win for the Detroit Lions. But for the Chicago Bears, like I said, a great job of turning them over, doing what you had to do defensively. Tremaine Edmonds, it was his first game back in the lineup. TJ Edwards getting an interception, a guy who we know to come downhill and make tackles in the run game. But getting back to it, you say, okay, we played this well, minus the turnovers, and we look at a situation where now we go into it. The Chicago Bears were 1 of 2 in the red zone. They won the time of possession, like I aforementioned, but what does this really mean? I think that when we look at it, Aaron Glenn, the defensive line, these are things in which I talked about when I said I look at this team, we got to be more sound. Lamar Jackson, struggle. Geno Smith, struggle. And like I said, when you go against these teams like a Dallas, like a San Fran, like the Philadelphia Eagles, these are all mobile quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, guys who can all get out of the pocket and throw in the run. And what I looked at with Luke Getsy and what they did offensively, a lot of the passing game was predicated on getting on the move. We saw a lot of sprint outs. We saw some RPOs. We saw read option in the run game. It was just a lot of different things with Justin Fields. Okay, I got to move up in the pocket. I'm going to evade the pressure, and then I'm going to get up in the pocket. I'm going to make my progression and my read, or I'm just going to scramble out of the pocket and run for the first down, break some tackles, slide, get down. Those were types of things which we saw, and I said, okay, for the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hudson, when we have our edge guys, we got to be able to contain or we got to set up a spy. And I think that Aaron Glenn tried to do some of those things, but execution-wise, it's not good. And like I said, this is something that has been occurring. And I think for Justin Fields, it was a good game because especially on a touchdown pass to DJ Moore, we look at that and say, okay, that was a play where he stepped up in the pocket, made his progression, made a great pass down the field to DJ Moore. And you look at that, maybe that's the dagger in the game. But come back to it. This is where I talk about Luke Getsy because I just gave him his credit. I gave him his flowers. But you're in a situation where all we have to do is get a first down and we can effectively try to end this game. If we're the Chicago Bears, you got to understand they get the football back with 2 timeouts. They have the 2-minute warning and they have their own timeout. Why are we running the ball as if they're going to call all 3 and they have no more timeouts? It's frustrating when you look at that for Luke Getsy doing something like that in a magnitude of that moment. But with Justin Fields, I think it was a good pass that you made to Tyler Scott down the football field, and you just have to snag that one in. If you're Tyler Scott, you got to go down the football field, haul that one in, and then we're looking at an extremely different game. But shout out to Jared Goff because when he got into that moment and said, okay, I got the football back. I got to make some big-time plays. He threw it into traffic with Amon-Ra St. Brown after he just threw interceptions into traffic in the middle of the field. Went right back to his guy, and he trusted him. After situations like that, and then we got to go score. They go score. They get the 2-point conversion to make it a field goal game. And then when the Chicago Bears get the football back, Aiden Hutchinson gets the sack. So Jared Goff, even with the game he had, in the biggest moments where they needed him the most, he stepped up. In the biggest moments where Luke Getsy had to be competent as a play caller, he fumbled. It was just the comfortability. When we see that, that's not going to win a football game. It's like you got too comfortable feeling as if you already won the game when it was just 26-14. And I think watching the game in the feel of it, you felt very confident in Chicago. You said, okay, we're up 26-14. The Detroit Lions, do they have the confidence and do they have the resilience to come back in a football game like this? And they showed you they did. I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. I think that overall it's just a roller coaster. I think that it's not that I'm asking the Detroit Lions to make Justin Fields Tom Brady. That you look at talent across the football field. It's the NFL. Just as good as your team is, some teams won't be as good in many different positions, but there's going to be good players. Justin Fields, he has talent. Regardless of what we think of him, he's a talented guy who's a dual threat. And even if he had a solid game, if he got 50 rushing yards, 40 rushing yards, but what he did yesterday in the passing game, scrambling out of the pocket, making play extensions, and then in the running game, getting read options, getting big-time gains, and also guys missing tackles on him, that's just unacceptable. But I want to know what you guys think because I think from the Chicago Bears standpoint, it's no way you should have lost this game. From the Detroit Lions standpoint, this was a very ugly game, and we wonder, can we trust these guys getting into a Super Bowl run? Like I said, we've seen a good body of work. But when I'm looking at those better football teams, it's really not about what's going on right now. And like I said, I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys game. That's going to be a huge game in my judgment for this team because I think that this is a very good team. It's a complete team. I like the defense and I love the offense with Ben Johnson calling those plays. But these mobile quarterbacks, if they're going to cause problems like this, if motion is going to cause problems like this, and fundamentals in the defensive scheme, how can we get to a situation where if the offense does turn over the football, you play a certain team, you turn over the football 4 times, you're just not going to win that game. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they were able to come out with this one. I want to know what you guys think because I know this is a controversial topic. I know it's going to be a controversial video, but I think a very good one. Some very good points were touched on. That's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And now, we out.